And we're going to have 15 minutes for each of the speakers to talk. There is an array of subjects today. Software engineering, we have data engineering, cloud engineering, obviously lots of engineering, DLP and cloud security. So very excited to see how this goes. Oh, and I have just turned it off.
All right, press that on again. There you go.
See.
One to the right.
Thank you. So, welcome to Brighton Cloud. And today's agenda, we are going to have, obviously, we've had our arrival, some yummy pizzas, thank you to Silicon Brighton, and some beers and soft drinks. We're now going to do an introduction to Brighton Cloud, Silicon Brighton from the lovely Charlie. And then we're going to do our Cloud Lightning talks, after which we might have a few opportunities to ask questions. But if you don't get an opportunity to ask questions today, there'll be a QR code on every speaker's name, and obviously network, chat to each other, connect, because the more community we build, the better Brighton cloud industry is, really. So this event is being recorded, so if you don't wish to be included in photographs or video contents, then please let Charlie or Maureen, who's hiding back there, know, and we'll take you out of them videos. This will also be available on YouTube later, so have a look at the Meetup page and you can watch these talks back if you want to digest a bit more information. And a huge thank you to Runway East. They do an amazing job facilitating these events. We have been here, this has been our home for about a year now, and they're also providing the yummy food and yummy pizzas that we've been eating today. So huge thank you. I don't think we've got any Runway East people here today, but... she's not here. They're not there. They're there in spirit, but they're fantastic. So if you do need any office working space, or if you ever want to come around and have a look at Runway East, pop in, and I'm sure they'll give you a tour, including the glitter room. So I'm going to pass you over to the lovely Charlie, who's going to introduce you to Silicon Brighton.
Thank you very much, Lacey. Can I say that as well? Hello, guys. I'm Charlie, for those of you who have not had the pleasure to meet. I work for Silicon Brighton, like you say. I do events and community engagement for Silicon Brighton, and we are the host of Brighton & Hove's tech sector. We support over 30 different meetup groups across the city now, including Brighton Cloud and AWS User Group Brighton, and also Sussex Azure User Group. Shout out to all the cloud meetup groups that we've got in the city. All the events that we run are free to join, available to people at all levels, and they're all hybrid. So obviously you're all in the room with us, but we also do a live stream. Hello, anybody who's on YouTube at the moment, which also means you can watch a video back of the event afterwards as well. All the work that we do wouldn't be possible without the help of our amazing supporters that you can see here. And if there's an organization that you know who might be interested in supporting us that you can't see on the list, please point them in our direction. I'd really appreciate it. And a special thanks and shout out to Octopus Energy, James Chase, Hyperion Dev, and the University of Sussex Business School. These are 4 of our sponsors, and they play a really key pivotal role in enabling us to do all the work that we do. Silicon Brighton is an amazing community and network, which means it's nothing without the people who make it happen. A small army of meetup organizers, speakers, volunteers. None of it would be possible without the help of these amazing people. And if you'd be interested in getting involved, stepping up from where you've just come along to a couple of events, you'd be interested in getting involved a little bit more, please do. We would absolutely love that to happen. Come and have a chat with myself or Lacey or Maureen before the end of the evening, or connect with us online. Anything that you like, come and have a chat. And if you'd like to do more, we can absolutely make it happen. These are our values. I'll let you read through these whilst I'm talking. But the most important thing is that if you feel these aren't being upheld in any of the work that we do, please let us know immediately. You can follow us on socials all across the internet. We are at Silicon Brighton. And we are in the middle of a fantastic and very busy July. Tomorrow we are at Plus X up the Lewis Road for Brighton AI. Friday is Game Dev Drinks at the Caxton Arms. And then next week we've got Brighton Data Forum, and the week after there's a Women in Blockchain Talks event as well. So loads going on. It's really fantastic. It's been a really busy July, and we're kind of rounding out to a close now as well for a very graceful landing, I hope. We're also marching with Pride next Saturday. We did this last year in the parade, and we're back again. My van, my little van that I use to get all of the kit around Brighton, is going to be in the Pride Parade, which is one of the greatest places of joy that I think I've ever had. I'll be telling people about it for years. I'm well excited. We're going to decorate it and everything. It's going to be really good. If you would like to join us, you can scan that QR code, and that'll take you to a link where you can sign up. And I mean, what better way to be a part of the day than to be in the parade itself? If you would like to be in with us, with the whole crew, with the van, then sign up there and we'll see you on the day. Please join our Slack community if you haven't done already. If you're not there, what are you doing? Get involved. It's the best place to network and connect with people and share resources and receive shared resources. It's absolutely brilliant. There's loads of stuff going on, and there's also channels for all of the different groups that we're supporting as well. So it's brilliant. There's loads going on. This QR code will take you to our link tree, which will go to everything that I've just gone through there, the events calendar, the Slack community, everything. If you scan that, that'll take you to where you need to go. I'm going to shut up now, pass back to Lacey, but thank you so much. Enjoy the evening, and I'll see you on the other side. Ciao.
Thank you, Charlie. So the other thing we wanted to mention, it's not so new anymore, but we still have our Brighton Cloud LinkedIn group. We want you guys to post. It's a group, so please post your great knowledge. Please post great links. It is a sharers forum, whether you're new to industry or if you've been many, many years and very long in the tooth, looking at you, John, in cloud warehousing. So today we're going to have a bit of a shift up in order, but we have Raj talking about DLP. Now, if you could bear with us a second, because we're going to be doing this as a hybrid event, because Raj is dialing in and should be able to.
Yeah. Hi, Lacey.
Hi, Raj.
Hi, Lacey. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect. Do you want to take over?
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to say hi to everyone since I was supposed to come and meet everyone, but due to the COVID thing in my family, I could not travel. Reason being, I don't want to put anyone else in the risk. So that's the reason. And I will just start sharing my screen. Just let me know if you guys can see my screen. Can you see my screen, Lacey? Can you see my screen?
Yes, Raj, see your screen. Can you hear
Uh,
us?
yeah. You can hear me, right?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I will just continue with the agenda, like what I'm going to talk about the DLP. So I will just provide a brief overview, like what is the DLP, then how it works, and then I will just show one of the reference architecture, like how we can implement the DLP. I will talk about some of the benefits, and if time permits, maybe I will try to show a small demo as well, and then we'll take any questions after that. So since we have got a window of almost close to 15 minutes, so that's a quite short time, but I will try to cover as much as I can. So now just to give you the overview, like what the TLP is. So basically, there is a lot of digitalization, digital transformations, cloud migrations happening at the moment. So the concerns from many customers, clients, or user is how safe their data is when they are into the cloud. So to overcome, there are many tools, technology coming up which can help the customers to safeguard their data once they have moved to the cloud. So in terms of that, DLP is kind of one of the solution you can say. So it's basically a fully managed service that enables the organizations to discover, classify, and protect their sensitive data in the cloud and on the on-prem as well. At the same time, it is kind of a data classifications and data discovery tool in automated fashion, which can classify and detect any kind of sensitive data basically. So how a DLP works is it analyzes the data and identifies any potential sensitive information, like let's say credit card numbers, social security numbers which we have in the US, then any kind of PII, and then any other sensitive data. Now, this TLP mostly I'm going to talk in terms of the Google Cloud Platform, because I have worked mostly towards the Google Cloud Platform and how we can use within the Google Cloud Platform. So, security team can use this TLP in the Google Cloud products like cloud services like BigQuery, cloud storage, and data flow. And on top of that, they can enforce the DLP policies to make it more rigorous and win in terms of the security. So this is how basically the picture in terms of DLP is. Now, what is the DLP in terms of the Google Cloud Platform? It's kind of the API. It's just the API which Google Cloud have. You just need to enable that API, and that will provide all the data classifications, data discovery, and identification of the PII information. Now, coming to some of the benefits, you can say, or what are the key benefits of the using the DLP? So it can have the automated sensitive data discovery and classification. It can have the flexible masking of your AIML workloads. It can cover the any use cases where whether it's on the cloud or on the on-prem as well, and it helps in masking, tokenization, and bucketing of your data once you have data into the cloud. Now let me go to the next slide. Now in terms of how DLP works, so before that I just want to go to this slide. Okay, so how DLP works is basically it first detects, identify the any sensitive data such as a PII, and then it de-identifies the data using the reduction, replacement, masking, and encryption, and then again it re-identify the data. So what does it mean is, for example, let's me go to the next slide. So let's say if the email address is one of your PII data, right? So how DLP is going to work? DLP will run the automatic algorithms models on top of this data, and once they identify that email address is your PII data, then they can follow these rules like reduction, replacement, masking, encryption. For example, let's say they are following the reduction, they can remove the complete email address once it is classified as a PII. Or if you are going with the replacement, you can replace with any other email address like xyg at the rate of something, and then you have functionality to do the masking as well, and then you have the functionality to do the encryption as well. So how DLP works is first identifies the sensitive data, and then it de-identifies the data using the reduction, replacement, masking, encryption technology. And again, at the end, you can re-identify the data. For example, let's say you have the data masked as per the masking or encrypted. You can remove those masking or encryption when you want to reuse the data. So this is how at high level, like how it works. Now let me walk you through this one of the reference architecture I wanted to talk about. So if you look here, these are the Google Cloud services like cloud storage, BigQuery. For now, these three services in terms of the Google Cloud are mainly integrated with the Google DLP, that is cloud storage, BigQuery, and data flow. So how it works is, for example, let's say if you have your data stored in the cloud storage or the BigQuery, then you will run the data re-identification using the cloud data flow, and that data flow will integrate with the DLP APIs, and those APIs will do their task and return the result. Whenever you are satisfied with the result, again you can do the re-identification. Same process, you have data in the BigQuery, you are running using the cloud data flow, and again that passing the output to the DLP APIs. So this is how it works in terms of the Google Cloud Platform. Now I will just quickly wanted to show a quick demo to you guys. Just allow me a second. I will just go to this. Oops, sorry. Just allow me 1 second. I just need to take that. So this is the one of the inbuilt demo which has been created by the Google itself. So for example, let's say if you have a text saying that please call me, my phone number is blah blah blah. So then in this case, TLP is going to run on top of this data, and you can say that they are going to classify your data, for example, let's say phone number, and then they are going to pass some confidence scores. For example, let's say very likely high means it's kind of confirm that it's going to be a phone number. So you can set your rules on top of whether if the result is very likely, then you can classify it, okay, this is phone number. If the result is very low, then you are not sure whether it's going to be a phone number or not, then you will not be able to classify this. So DLP APIs runs their algorithm on top of this data, and then they provide the result in terms of the three formats, like very likely, very unlikely, and likely. Very likely means there is a high confidence that this is going to be a phone number or email address or credit card numbers or anything, like for example, let's say US healthcare NPI or anything. So just to give you more idea, for example, let's say I'm removing everything, I'm just typing a email address, for example, let's say. So you can see this. Now, when I type this email address, these are the results. It's saying that likely it's going to be email address, and it's saying that domain name gmail.com is high. And if you say that they are trying to classify the four as a person name, but the confidence is very low, unlikely, like they're saying that it could not be a person name. So this is how it works in terms of the DLP, data automatic data classifications and sensitive data protection. Now let me go back to my slides in terms of, and bring this to presentation mode. Okay, so how it basically works is they have their flexible classifications where they have more than 150 inbuilt data types enablers. Those data type enablers scan the data, I mean scan the text or data, images or video, and they help them to discover, classify and report if they have found anything. So it's not that only the inbuilt, you can define your custom levels as well. When I say custom levels, those customs level will be based on your inputs provided by user, and they will be working using the regular expression, and they will provide the results once you have your custom data types defined. Now this is serverless architecture in terms of DRP, so you don't need to worry about the any kind of hardware management or VM. And the pricing model is it's a pay as you go, like whatever data you are going to scan, you are just going to pay for that, and whatever services you are going to use, you are just going to pay for that. You're not, you, I mean to say, let's say if you want to scan the data today, so you just need to enable your API today and you pay for today. You would not, you don't need to take it switch on for longer period of time. And then it has got some good integration with the Google Cloud, BigQuery, data flow and cloud storage at the same time. And then it's kind of the easy workload integration, and it has reusable templates as well. You can have your periodic scans for monitoring the data. You can set your scans timing, like what time you want to do the scan, what time you don't want to do, it totally depends on you. And then you can define your the custom rules as well on top of this. So this is how it works. Now going to some of the benefits, like what are the benefits of using the DLP in the Google Cloud. So the benefit, like it can reduce the risk of the data breach, and then it helps the customers, it helps the organizations to meet the regulatory compliance, and it prevents your data against the theft and phishing scams, and also it prevents the data for the unauthorized sharing of the data. If you don't want to share your data to someone, then also DLP can help in meeting that rule. On top of that, whatever policy violations or whatever rule which has been violated, you can all together integrate it with dashboards like Power BI. You can integrate it with Data Studio into the Google Cloud and get a good glimpse of reporting, like what has been failed, what has been passed, which errors, what are the most violation rules coming from your data, and then based on the source of the data you can rectify those errors. So in nutshell, it's kind of automatic data classifications and data discovery tool which is well integrated with the Google Cloud. And if you have any kind of use case where you need to do the automatic data classification, and you need to have the sensitive data classifications in automatic way, then yeah, you can use the DLP as for your use case. So this is what at high level I have tried to cover a brief about the DLP. I would like to have any questions. If anyone have any questions on this, then yeah, happy to answer that as well.
Please reach out. We have, as said earlier, we'll share out the PowerPoint later with the QR codes of all the speakers.
Okay.
Brilliant. But thank you so much for dialing in. I know, and apologies for any sound issues here, but I think you've done a great job, Charlie, in the short notice. So thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our next speaker. And thank you, Raj. I'm just going to switch over to screen. And our next speaker is the wonderful Susanna. So Susanna, I'm just going to get your slides up. And Susanna is, I'd say, an absolute pro in this area, but also she is a legend of a Brighton Cloud speaker. So Susanna, do you want to come to the stage?
Thank you so much. Okay, I assume this clicks. Am I allowed to walk around or do I have to stand still? Okay, so I stay on this side of a table, but I'm allowed to. Okay, I don't do low energy talks. Okay, awesome. Hi everyone. I think I need to push a button. I don't remember anything of what I was going to say, so this is awesome. No, that's the wrong way. That's what I meant to do. Yes, DLP. Cool. So, hi, my name is Susanna. Oh, that was my first slide, ruined it already. This talk is called How I Accidentally Became a Python Developer, because that's what happened. So, okay, I think I've got the right one. Yes. Okay, so hi, my name is Susanna. I'm a renewable energy software engineer, currently lending myself, go on then, to water tech. And just a little bit about me. That's me on the Isle of Wight. I'm obsessed. Just to say, I have ADHD, I'm autistic, I have ADHD, so just bear that in mind when you network with me. I'm terrible at replying to LinkedIn messages unless you have a concrete question. And I also get a bit overwhelmed, but I'm always very happy to help people out, and I've coached a lot of software developers to success. So I am very happy to help, just bear with me. Right, I've been standing still for too long. This is frustrating. So, about me, what's my pacing range? So I was born to be an engineer. With everything I've just described, my brain is totally and utterly wired for code. And the day I first started coding, less than 2 years ago, was the day the sun came out. So less than 2 years ago, in a week or two, it will have been 2 years, I did my first hour of SQL, was the happiest I've ever been in my life, and was like, I was born to do this, I have to do this, the whole universe is out of alignment if I'm not doing this. So I had to find a way to get hired. In fact, in one job interview, they asked me once, how did you solve a problem? And I said, well, the problem was that I wasn't an engineer, and I had to fix that problem, and I did. So, yeah, how did I go about getting hired? As I said, I've managed to do it very quickly, so I wanted to talk briefly about that. I should probably just say, though, that I started off in JavaScript. So, oh man, I'm taking you down. Well, to be fair, now I'd be inclined to agree. Okay, still not sure what my walking range is, and this is quite difficult for me, but so I had to get hired as fast as possible to becoming a software engineer because, as I mentioned before, the whole universe was out of alignment as long as I wasn't a software engineer. So I had to go about fixing that as quickly as possible. So my first strategy was to watch all the videos on YouTube about software engineering. I wanted to get a very big overview of what this was and what it meant, and it actually consequently led me to having a lot of context people didn't expect me to have further down the line. And one of the said YouTube videos said, if you want to get hired as a software, should I answer that? If you want to, well, probably, that's how it is, you know, they're ringing. If you want to get hired as a software engineer, you have to put yourself out there. And it offered lots of options, but for me, the two platforms I used were LinkedIn and my blog. More on the blog later. But basically, it took me 2 months of coding to commit for life. Another month of attending loads of events to kind of find my formerly JavaScript direction. And so I've been coding for about 3 months when I got really serious. I started a front-end engineer course on Codecademy. I started my blog. I started sharing my blog on LinkedIn. It took me 2 weeks to get noticed. That was pretty cool. And so I began to do courses, write blog posts on them, and share that on LinkedIn. And as you're going to see during this talk, that's kind of a theme. So yeah, how long did it take me to get hired? From that day where I got really serious and started my first blog, it was 3 months to my first job offer. And I was an internal hire. I benefited from like company restructures and stuff, but I was paid to learn how to code for a long time. So don't tell me that marketing yourself doesn't work, because it works and you want to do it. Trust me, you really want to do it. And so I have no idea what my next slide is. Oh yeah, it's a heartbreak one, I think. Oh yeah, but even the best of dreams must end. So after a great year of being kind of trained in a renewable energy tech startup, having the best time of my life, half a company got laid off, totally no warning, overnight, all of a sudden, just came in one day, everything was fine. People like several grades above me were gone. There was no chance for me. But these are just blog posts there from the last week alone. I've done more about wind farms since. Essentially, there were two things I didn't want to lose out on when I lost my job. Firstly, I wasn't willing to compromise on being a software engineer. Like, I made that very clear, it's what I was born to do. And people were saying, oh, maybe analyst, but I knew if I stepped back from that, it would take me, it could take me a while to get, so I knew I couldn't lose that momentum, but I also wasn't willing to compromise on renewable energy, and I did, but not more than I had to. So I was really determined to find a renewable energy job, and my best option was Kraken. So I work for, spoiler alert, Kraken now. It's Octopus Energy's tech platform, and they were my biggest hope, because there aren't many renewable energy companies, especially who hire people earlier in their careers. And they said to me, they screened me, they loved me, they did, and they said to me, we interview in Python, and I said, cool. The interview was in a week, it was meant to be in a week. I said, how much Python can I learn in a week? It turned out, it ended up being 10 days, which was good, and then I ended up having another 10 days to learn Django, so that was also good. Sorry, I wanted to talk a bit about how I learned Python so fast. And people were asking me about techniques, so this is the technique bit. Okay, click. Yeah, so learning Python. I think there's another click. Click. So this might look strangely familiar to one of my previous slides, because what are the strategies I learned to use Python at the speed of light? Step 1, work 12 hours a day, no days off. Don't recommend it, I'm still recovering. Lies, I still do that. But never mind, we don't need to talk about that. But basically my strategy was very similar. I did the beginner's Python course on Codecademy, and I committed every single day, no matter what. I wrote a blog post about what I'd learned, whether it was just writing up notes or just from memory stuff. And every single day I wrote a LinkedIn post. And crucially, I made sure they weren't the same. So really that's my strategy, is to always consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. And not even necessarily always to look over notes unless they're relevant, but just to go, what do I know? Everything I know, write it down right now. As if I was in an exam, because that's how I did exams all my life. I never studied. So I just, so you just like regurgitate from memory everything you can. And, that was nice. I got the job and everything, but it obviously wasn't enough. Every day I'm having to continue to upskill my Python, like the standards are high, and I have to keep on going, like working with people who've been doing it for 10 or 15 or 17 years or whatever. So the bar is high and I have to keep going. So one more time, this is beginning to probably look more and more familiar, but it shifts slightly every time. Oh, I did forget one thing, and I do just owe him a shout out. I put the superhero and the email. One of my former colleagues you very quickly find out who your friends are after you get laid off. And one of my former colleagues was absolutely not letting me go. He coached me in Python over email. I would send him my questions. He would send me long code examples. He was an absolute superhero. And yet you learn who your friends are very quickly when you're about to lose your fancy job, or when you already have, sorry. Yeah, so my strategy for upskilling Python at the moment is, surprise, surprise, Codecademy. I'm doing intermediate Python at the moment, and we'll do Django and advanced Python blog posts all the time. I have a second blog where I kind of do like more formal write-ups and create infographics, and it's great for looking at it and going, oh, I didn't know I learned that Python method, but I did. Good to remember. And Code Wars, I cannot recommend Code Wars enough. I'm working on solving Python problems elegantly as opposed to solving the hardest problems in the world, because as anyone who codes knows, you can write very, very hacky code, or you can write very nice code, and we like nice code. We like clean code. So that's basically it. That's the story of how I accidentally became a Python developer. I became a Python developer because I couldn't bear to leave renewable energy. It's my whole life. It's what my whole world revolves around. And as I said, water tech is a compromise where I can bring my expertise, but never be too far away. And I just want to, finally say that this is perfect because Python is the language of the future for renewable energy. It is the language of the future for water tech. Actually, while I was researching in my last job, everything pointed to Python. So you never know when sometimes the worst thing in the world might be taking you exactly where you want to be. And it may just be the best thing that's ever happened to you in your life. Sorry, not sorry, if anyone's watching. And yeah, just to finish off, you can follow me in my 3 blogs. My third one is about the Dao De Jing and how it relates to software engineering, but that's a talk for another time. I can never get enough. And yeah, we are hiring. I didn't include a logo, whoops. But yeah, if you want to join us, it's great. It's very autonomous. You own a lot of stuff yourself. We're hiring senior to mid-level Python and Django backend engineers 1 day a week or 2 in London at Octopus Energy careers page, or talk to me. And yeah, I don't know if I've gone over, but any questions? And here are some wind farms. I've got 2 minutes if anyone has any burning questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna, as always, brilliant. Again, connect with Susanna and have a read of her blogs because they are brilliant. They're absolutely inspiring. So the next person we have to talk is Olive, and rather proudly, Olive works with us at Rocketmill, and she's a senior analytics executive, and she's going to talk about her journey into the clouds.
Okay. So I put some nice animations in. So this is my journey into the cloud. So to start with, just a little bit about me. So I have a background in marketing analytics, and I now work a fair amount in GCP, but it's mostly just SQL. And I really got into coding over lockdown because I was extremely bored like most people. And so I just spent my days going through courses on Udemy and just doing them for hours and hours a day and just making sure I knew Python and R. So the reason I joined Rocketmill is because I had finished uni, I had no idea really what I was doing, and then I started off in another company. And they were doing a lot of stuff, pulling data, analyzing it in Excel, and it wasn't really for me. And I had a friend that worked there, and he would tell me all about how they're very tech-driven and how there was like a big culture of if you want to do something, if you want to learn something, people above you will give you that work so then you can learn and progress in it. So from day one, I was going in, people knew I liked to code in R, so they would then give me a lot of work for me to then be able to do that. But when I first joined, we were just doing like a lot of stuff in R, doing a lot of data analysis in that, and we weren't really using GCP at all. But the reason we started using it is because of this. Google Analytics 4. So before we had something called Universal Analytics, which is the platform where if you go onto a website, all your data goes through that, and then we can see what people are doing on a website, analyze it, make changes from that. But Google decided to sunset it and bring in Google Analytics 4. And when they first brought it in, there were loads of issues. Everything was broken. No one really knew how it worked. The documentation was absolutely awful, but it had a really close integration with GCP. So all of the data that was in Google Analytics 4, you could send off to GCP in a raw format before it had been processed at all, so you could see what it was doing. So by using this BigQuery data, we could explore what the processing was doing and actually get to the right solution from it. But when that happened, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just saw that this whole system doesn't really work. We're not getting the right results from it, and we have to make a change. So I saw there was a massive value in just learning how to code and into learning to be able to use this data. And luckily, there were people within my team that saw this interest and decided to, help me pursue it. And so I spent all days learning by trial and error. When I look back at my old code a year ago, I realized I had absolutely no idea. It is absolutely awful. And it was the most inefficient stuff. I would be running hundreds of gigabytes when I could be running megabytes worth of data. And I ended up, having spent hours scanning through the internet, trying to find stuff where someone was doing something similar and trying to adapt it to what we actually need. And everything was massively inefficient. And I think one thing I sort of noticed from, going through the internet and just trying to find stuff that matches, the people that I feel like really excel, the ones when they take it and look through it and think, what's this piece of code doing? And is this right? And they don't necessarily trust the person that's wrote the blog post or wrote that and takes the time to scan through it, because there's always going to be an error. I'm sure we've all used Stack Overflow. Nothing perfectly sits in the code that we wrote. And but by doing this, it meant we could do things that we couldn't do in GA4. So we could attribute the trial source mediums to the purchases instead of the trials for trials business. We could make sure clients had visibility of different journeys that they didn't have a visibility of. We could understand the impact of not having cookies anymore and the cookieless pings. We could get around API limits, and we could fill in blanks where we didn't have the data. And by jumping into this, it really highlighted we needed this skill within the company. So we decided to bring in someone who knows what they're doing in terms of Lace to come in and really upskill us. And she has very much been in my corner with that, making sure that I now know properly what I'm doing and making sure the code is clean and efficient and runs as it should. But and yeah, because of that, it's now GCP, and using it for analytics functions is now being embedded into the business. It's a day-to-day task, and we've now working with a number of clients to build really robust and tailored reports for them. So I guess in getting into this, a few bits of advice. So the first one is, don't wait for someone to give you permission to get started. So going back, and yes, for the second one, I'm going to make loads of mistakes. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went in with just thinking, I want to do this. I knew from learning over lockdown, I just loved coding. I just wanted to get into it and just made it happen. And when you're looking for a job or you're trying to do something, a job description is a wish list. It's not a set of demands. So just go for it anyway. And the last one, which I'm sure we'll probably agree listening to the last talk, ability can be taught, but passion can't. So if you have passion, that is the single most important thing, because you will get there with it. Yeah, very short one, but...
And just to say, this is Olive's first ever live talk, so well done. Huge well done. So up for the old pro himself. John is third. Maybe fourth. So we're going to pass over to John, who is... Oh, no, we're going
Wrong way. There you go.
There you go.
You buggered my slides. Hang on. You've gotten... Oh, no. Okay, no, we're good. Right. Hi, yeah, that's me. Right. Timer. This is pitched as a 20-minute talk because I've pitched it elsewhere, so I'm going to talk quick and skip bits. There we go. Right. Right, yeah, building serverless podcasting workflow. Adventures with AI. This is me. Hang on, I'm in the wrong order. Screw it. I'm a serverless community builder, but AI is kind of a big thing, so I thought let's sort of see if we can do some bits and pieces in the middle. What we're going to go through today, we had a problem, we're trying to solve it. What was the idea? Unexpected help from AWS. It's always unexpected when they help. It's not, they're great, but you know, we found things we weren't expecting to find. What we ended up building, challenges, next steps, all that kind of good stuff. Right, who am I? Some of you know me, some of you don't. Hi, I'm John. I'm lead cloud engineer at Logicata. If you want to know more about Logicata, talk to Carl, because I'm not doing the pitch. Told you I was skipping things. I'm an AWS community builder. I'm not going through what that is today, but if you want to know about that, come talk to me afterwards. I'm in the serverless category, and what that means for the uninitiated is I do this sort of thing. They'd like me to do more blogs, but I don't blog. I'm sorry, I don't. I mean to, and then I write like one a year. It's appalling. I do this instead. And I'm also the co-founder of the AWS Brighton user group. Our event was yesterday. I see some swag, which is always good. That's another QR code for me. You know, I love a QR code. That's Logicata. Not doing that. I've got to save 5 minutes somewhere. We had a problem. What was the problem? Every week, because I'm a white bearded man and I work in technology, I have a podcast. The other white bearded man that's on it is over there. Every week we do a 30-minute podcast about topical things in AWS. I think it's interesting. Probably lots of people don't. Off the back of that, we need to come up with a title because we don't know what it is before we've done it. Pretty common for a podcast. We need to muck around with file formats for various publishing platforms. We need to upload to said publishing platform about 3 times. We need to summarize recordings, create show notes, because again, that's accessibility and it helps with the marketing, and you can sort of tell people ahead of time, this is what we're actually talking about, so you don't waste half an hour of your life looking at me in my shed and my cat getting in the way. It's a thing. She's on it more than I am, I think. And then we create a trailer and a number of clips for socials. On top of that, we'd also like to, or Carl would like to, create a written blog post off the back of each episode, because content reuse is absolutely king. It takes a couple of hours a week to put the podcast out all in, and if we can get more than just 30 minutes and some clips, more the better. What's the idea? Well, could we outsource it? Yes, but you know, that costs money. Could we automate it? Also yes, but it costs money. And not all of the things play nicely. So the various platforms that we have, they don't know about each other. So we'll record in one thing, we'll publish through another, we'll do conversions in a third thing, and then, you know, LinkedIn for social promos and all that kind of jazz. And do we have the excuse for an AI project? Because we needed an excuse for an AI project. Everyone was doing AI. We needed to do something so we could talk about it. So yeah, do we have an excuse? Oh, I think so. What was the unexpected help? Well, this is a well-trodden idea, it turns out. Not specifically for podcasts, but there's a little bit of that. That one there, if you're not familiar, is Amazon CTO Werner Vogel's blog, where he built a thing so that they could record their team meetings and then get the notes out of it off the back end. And there's another one there for summarizing podcasts so that you don't have to listen to them to work out what's going on. And it gets better because that is basically exactly what I needed to build. And Amazon had already done it. Brilliant. Love that. It saved me days and days of work. And I did about 50, 60% of it on crappy Wi-Fi in a Costa when I had 4 hours to kill. It even has the example project. I love an example project. What does it look like? Well, this isn't the example project. This is how I just demolished it. I was going to use a really bad word and YouTube would have banned us. That's what it looks like. Go on. That's a lot of boxes. So we'll talk about them. First one, start. What we do, we take, after we've done the recording, and this is still kind of manual mungy jobs, do the recording, get the various files. We chuck the MP4 and M4A up. M4A is, it's not an Apple format. I think it's an Apple format. I don't know. It's an audio format that's not an MP3, basically. We upload that into an S3 bucket. That kicks off that whole process. The notification triggers the workflow. If you're not familiar, you can trigger loads of things off the back of sticking things in AWS S3 bucket, which is fantastic for event-driven workflows, which is why I like them and like the talk yesterday. It's brilliant for dealing with things like user-generated content and, just generally decoupling your processes. First one, prepare inputs. Now, when you do get that notification, it's a little bit ugly. There's a lot of data. It kind of looks, there's more than just that because there's metadata about the data and it just is horrific. So the first thing we do is we trim it. So it's a lot easier to work with downstream because on the left is awful, on the right is less horrible and it's more obviously named and so on. Then we kick off the media conversion. This just triggers a job in another service and then we forget about it. One of the things that's on my list of things to do is poll that job so I don't have to go back and check it. Converts the M4A to MP3 because Spotify only deals with MP3s, which we discovered to our chagrin after uploading to our publishing platform for, I want to say 3 months. And one of our guests told us that I can't find it on Spotify past episode 9. Okay. So that was fun. So we have to have an MP3 and that's how we do that. Then we transcribe the podcast because AI currently, because it's all done through an LLM, currently they can't cope with audio inputs, and anything that can cope with audio inputs, because a few of them can, are prohibitively expensive because you pay per second of input and it's pence per second, so it's prohibitively expensive. So yeah, what that does is it just kicks off the transcribe and chucks it into a JSON document so you can then read it downstream. Now I have this little loop, which technically isn't a job, and I know I'm talking about the jobs, but it's kind of all related. The first one, we wait for the transcription because that takes a couple of minutes. But that first job there just sits there and waits for 30 seconds. Then we query the job status to see, have you finished yet? I know it's terribly inefficient, but it means you get this nice orchestration. Well, in theory, what you could do is you could just listen for the event to say that it's finished, but you wouldn't have this lovely orchestration. And honestly, you only wait for 2 or 3 minutes and it's not mission critical, so it's fine. Check transcribe status, get transcribe status, goes off, queries the job from the ID that we passed through the workflow and sees if it's kind of what it's doing. Depending on what it is, that transcribe status is an if statement within the step function's workflow. So this code is not clean or efficient, or even Python. The lambdas are all Python, but it's not clean or efficient, it's dirty and quick. But it means I don't have to write unit tests because you can't unit test this. They don't exist. It's brilliant. Also, you don't really need them, and that's kind of the argument. If it's completed, proceed. If it's failed, drop down the error route. And if it's still progressing, we'll go around again, and we'll go around again, and we'll go around again until one of those break conditions is met, or until the workflow times out, which is about 15 minutes. So it's never going to run forever. Now we have this AI bit because we have AI. So we format the transcription. Again, that's just some Lambda jiggery pokery where we take the JSON document and kind of mush it into variables so we can read it downstream. We invoke the Bedrock model. Anyone heard of Bedrock? Amazon Bedrock? Yeah, no, glazed eyes. It's AWS, it's Amazon Bedrock, but it's an AWS service, don't get me started, that allows you to run managed LLMs just at the end of an API. You can bring your own, you can use third party, you can use Amazon ones. We use Bedrock. Currently we use Claude 2 because that's what was available at the time. But we invoke the model, we take the transcription, we read a prompt out of an external table in DynamoDB, and we kind of mash that together into one big prompt and say, do a thing. And the prompts are, this is a transcription from so-and-so, give me X, Y, and Z output, and then give it the transcription. And we do that 4 times. Then we take the output of that, stick it in a text file, pop it back in the same S3 bucket in a different folder so we don't re-trigger the workflow because that would all break. Model status, that's just checking the output. There's no loop there because the model invoke is actually a synchronous process. So there's no need to bother looping because it'll just return when it's finished. And then we send the recording summary via an SNS topic, which I've got dumping into Slack because emails are awful. So it dumps into Slack. Then there's a failure path. This is only triggered on certain failure states. It's there for a reason. So if Bedrock falls over and it tells us it's fallen over, it's quite good at that. We know that it's fallen over. Or if the transcription falls over, it tells us it's fallen over and we know about it that way. Those are kind of the common failure patterns. I don't have proper alerting or error handling on this because it's not a critical workflow. It's a bit of marketing fluff and, you know, it's for a talk. We send a message to SNS. I go and sort of swear at it for a bit and probably remove a prompt because it's usually a dodgy prompt that's killed it. And then process failed is a quirk of step functions. If you've not used step functions, if you're in that box in the middle there, it's called a parallel state. And that's, again, that's me being very lazy, but you can't end inside a parallel state without having a specific failure state or a pass state. So we have to put a manual state in there that say you have failed. Otherwise, the previous thing will send the message, and then because it sent a failure message, it's passed. Technically, it's done what it's meant to, but the overall workflow's failed. So we need to tell it it's failed. And the end bit, if you haven't gone down the failure state, is again another one. You can't directly end on a parallel state because the parallel state will just exit. So we have to have a pass state in there. And that just says, I'm done. Cool. I've got a timer there. It's all right. You're taking my time now, and I will not yield to the gentleman. So what do we achieve out of all of this? I spent a couple of days of my life doing this, and Carl paid me for that, so thanks very much. The basis for this talk, which was admittedly about 40% of the point, was to be able to talk about it afterwards so that I can try and get my community builder renewal for the third time. That'd be amazing. Second time. I was manually creating the MP3s by doing the upload and triggering jobs and all the rest of it, so I don't have to do that anymore, which is, you know, it's nice. It just kind of, it's part of it. Go. I have a lot more knowledge about Bedrock and LLMs and various strategies and techniques to work with them. I was a bit of a skeptic before I started playing with it. I played with it and went, oh, okay, yeah, useful, handy. I'm still a little bit skeptical that it's not just vaporware, but there are actual use cases there. And now I kind of understand them and I can talk with a little bit more confidence on this podcast. It's a bit Ouroboros because we talk about this workflow on the podcast that we then run through the workflow. But I can talk about things like prompt engineering and RAG and vector graphs and all those kinds of things. So I know a bit now, which is handy. The titles are now created semi-automatically. It spits them out. We sometimes disagree with it, but it gives us a prompt. And then we have a summary that spits out on the end for, quote, and creative, which is, again, it's Carl, because I'm an engineer and not terribly creative. And it gives you a decent summary. Challenges and learnings. I hate the word learnings, but it fits. So time. It takes a long time to do these. This is a MVP. I'm not calling it a minimum lovable product like AWS would like me to. It is minimum viable, and I do not love it. It works, but it took a couple of days, even with a really big kickstart, to get even something vaguely working. Pace of change within LLMs. If you're not familiar, it's ridiculous. Between the MVP, which was March, April time, and now, possibly not even that long ago, there have been 4 new Claude models, and that is just from Anthropic within Claude. There's been dozens of different models, and I genuinely do not have the time to go and do proper model evaluation. I used Claude 2 because that's what the example used. That's basically as far as it went. And yeah, between model versions, the input styles and things, how they want you to interact, changes as well. So you have to do vague bits of re-engineering that you didn't expect to have to do. Great. Quality of LLM output, it's non-deterministic, so you give it the same input and you can get 2 different outputs, which is enormously frustrating. And the results aren't consistent, so sometimes they'll be really good, sometimes they'll be really bad, and it's just middling. Lack of skill set, I had no formal training in it, and I don't think anybody does because it's so brand new. You basically have to stumble around in the dark trying to find what you're doing. Resiliency, because my code is neither clean nor good, it hangs at the tiniest little problem. So it's one of the things I need to fix because I did the whole thing in about an hour. Next steps. Migrate to the latest Claude model because, like I say, we're now 4 versions out of date. And if you look at the graphics between Claude 2 and the newest one, 3.5 Sonnet, there's this graph that says, how much it costs and how they call it intelligent. I don't like the word, but how good it is. Claude 2 is down here. 3.5 Sonnet's kind of like up here. It's significantly better. Better iteration of the prompt. So we're throwing 4 prompts through it, and rather than doing a hacky loop that falls over, I need to actually do a proper loop within the step functions and handle the error properly. And then ideally, I'd love to not have to go back into the S3 bucket to get the MP3 file. I'd love to just chuck a link into Slack so that it can just be pulled down directly. And then fine-tune the prompts because the blog posts it spits out at the minute are not great. I know a lot more about prompt engineering now, and the way the inputs work is a little bit different. So hopefully I can fine-tune the prompts. Might be worth looking at RAG, but you have to run databases, and that costs a bunch of money. Questions? Questions? Anyone? No? Don't have time.
Yeah, when can we have 3.5?
When you do it.
I think you've got one more slide about the...
We'll just skip back. I can do it now. We can do it after.
a quick slide before Lucy comes up? One more slide.
This isn't strictly part of the talk, so don't throw microphones at me. One other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick, spoke about this yesterday for those of you that were there. If you care about the cloud, interested in AWS, want to go to their enormous 5-day party conference in Vegas towards the end of the year, first week of December, it's kind of spendy because you've got to fly to Vegas, you've got to stay in a hotel, conference passes a couple of grand. Can't afford it. If you fit in that category, so you're over 21, and that's because the hotels also have casinos, so that's a licensing thing. You're within the first 5 years of a tech career, you're part of one of those groups. Unfortunately, there's nothing for neurodiversity. It's been picked up several times, and maybe it will happen. I know I'm annoyed about it. It's been picked up several times, but, the standard set of minorities, face barriers, blah, blah, blah. There's a form. AWS will pay for you to go to reInvent if you qualify and, you impress them. Done.
Thank you, John. So we're going to hand over to Lucy now. One thing to do is get your phones ready because we are going to do a Kahoots at the end.
Thank you very much, Lace. Which one is forward? That one? Yeah. Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm going to be talking about security in the cloud. It's not going to be a level 400. Was that, John? What was that? Okie doke. All right. In which case, mine, I don't know, might be 100. It's the principles, the foundations. I'm a career switcher, coming in from teaching into cloud. So for about 18 months now, I've been retraining in AWS so far. But I've also been doing a course with women in cloud on Azure cyber security analyst path, hence the reason I'm talking about security. I've also been to a couple of AWS events on security and a lot of cloud women, AWS cloud women. So just a little plug there for all the diversity and inclusion and women in tech associations and support there. Okay, why am I talking about cloud security? Well, I guess after last week with the CrowdStrike incident, I should have been doing this last week, might not have happened. But no, really, this year, 2024, has got apparently over, I think it's 97 countries have got elections. So apparently, according to an AWS women breaking into cyber security, it's set to be and probably is going to be, has been a particularly busy year for security. Also, coming as a teacher, it's an interesting fact that traditionally the education sector is the worst hit by security, with higher education saying 97% of them have had a security breach. Also, with AWS, security is job zero. So before you even take your first step, you should be thinking about security. And it's the first pillar in the well-architected framework. Also, there's a kind of 007. I quite like security, cyber security. There's a bit of intrigue. So the foundations we're going to be looking at, it's very much a culture of security. It's not only about the tech tools, it's about people and the processes. The NCSC, the National Cyber Security Centre, have also got their own cloud security principles, and each of the cloud providers will be aligning with those. Everybody's got their shared responsibility model, which is basically who does what. It's a bit like putting your money into a bank. If you put your data into a cloud provider, you need to know what you're responsible for looking after and what they are. AWS has got its 7 security design principles. Have a quick look at those. And then I'm going to be simplifying a security in defense in depth approach with the help of a couple of characters we'll be seeing in a moment. Just to say, the AWS have a leadership principle called invent and simplify. That's the one. That doesn't mean say that I've made all this up. It is real stuff, I promise. But I certainly intend to simplify it. So 2 key concepts: security by design and security by default. Security by design means it's built in or baked in, as people say, right from the start. So the whole software development cycle starts with the goal of security in mind, and you keep it always developed from the start. Security by default is built in, basically. Certain services have built-in things. So these are all of the cloud security principles from the National Cyber Security Centre. I'm not going to read through those. Each of the big cloud providers have what they call their shared responsibility. So Azure's first. It's always the same thing, that the customer responsibility. It's the data. Your data is it's your crown jewels, I guess. It's the differentiator. We hear it say it's the new oil, and it's your responsibility. Also, identity or access as well, always the customer's responsibility. Google, the same with the content, so it's the data and the access policies. And AWS, of course, this one particular model is for security. Always customer data, your responsibility. Here are the 7 AWS design principles. So you need a strong identity, traceability. All layers need to have a security supplied. Automate them, keep people away. So 4 and 6 are one in the same, really. Let the machine do it, because people make errors all the time. And then prepare, so train people. 7 dimensions, as they are. This is a bit like the Microsoft defense in depth, the layers of security. So we're going to use this, all of these different layers. This is not the OSI. I'm sure everyone here knows this better than I do. It's not the OSI model, which is also 7 layers. However, we're going to apply what AWS have guidances, recommendations. It's called the Startup Security Baseline. This is intended for people starting up their workloads in the cloud. However, it's also good baseline guidance for more complex workloads. They divide it into 2 separate recommendations: how to secure your accounts and how to secure your workloads. So let's have a look at it in action, how each layer of defense is going to be, what the potential threats are and how we can protect against them. So we're going to enlist the help of, I don't know if anyone recognizes this person. He's notorious, impressive. Yeah, he's an elusive guy. He said, yeah. Although little does he know that in the other team, is it the red team or the blue team? That's in the blue team. Coming up against him, we've got our very own ambassador, our AWS expert agent. All good. This is very good. So, yeah, all good. The contest is on. The target is your data. Here we go. Round one. Ting, ting. So potential threats here. I mean, obviously, normally the physical security layer is really the cloud provider's problem. It's people breaking into the data centers. And yeah, kind of, but you get some idea of some of the possible threats. So think, yeah, people cutting off thumbs in order to get into the door. Unfortunately, yeah, the AWS startup security guidelines didn't cover that. So yeah, so here comes Agent All Good with a couple of bits of advice, because as I say, the startup doesn't cover missing digits. It's more general advice going through. So yeah, basically use Amazon Guard Duty. Or a top tip from them, when you're setting up, you need to set up contacts so that when your workload when something does go wrong, AWS can actually contact you. Apparently, there's a surprisingly high number of companies it's little Jimmy in the whatever department's left, and he's taken the only contact with him in his personal email. So yeah, make sure you've set up account level contacts. 3 of them are recommended: billing, operations, security. Okay, zero trust principle, least privilege, principle of least privilege are very much throughout the security. You only let whoever do whatever is the minimum. Okay, next layer down. This is more like a kind of filter or a view, like a filter in terms of your viewpoint, your approach. So policies and access layer, it's a very big, important thing to get right. It's kind of like the boundary between the physical world and the cloud. So there's many things that can go wrong here. Again, here we've got Agent All Good with some advice. So yeah, I mean, the CloudTrail logs will be there anyway, but use them. Use Trusted Advisor to see what the best practices are. Security Hub. Restrict the root account. Now, according to the security incident response team speaker at the last security event I went to, this still accounts for 66% of the incidents are exposed credentials or passwords, and 1/3 of those are on the root user account, which seems surprisingly high. But so simple yet still to be learned tip: don't use the root account. Use IAM users and user groups, because then all the policies easily apply to that whole group. Okay, perimeter layer. Where's Hackerman? Oh, he seems to have multiplied. In comes Agent John, Agent John Goodall here. Okay, workload. So the perimeter is the outer layer of the network. So any kind of edge protection, things, load balancers, API gateways, and web application firewall, AWS Shield, they're all going to help you. Tips for the account are obviously you require multi-factor authentication and enable log file validation. Enforce password policies. Network layer, so the inner network. Problems here can be using open ports to access remotely. Hackerman seems to be spoofing, I think. I'm not quite, there we go, got rid of him. With a couple of, so encryption using HTTPS, use certificates manager, use VPC endpoints, so people don't actually have to enter the network at all. Account level, use Session Manager instead of SSH or RDP. Just-in-time access is very similar to principle of least privilege. So you're only allowing, or you have elevated use, but only for the time that you need it. Compute layer. So here, again, these are the types of threats that are happening. Tips are to hardening, which basically means deleting any unused stuff, updating, patching, use of security groups, encrypt the EBS volumes. At the account level, use roles. So roles allow temporary access. You don't need any credentials. They're just there for either a machine or a person to go in and do one job, and that's it. And then, IAM Access Analyzer as well will help with other forms of compute. Okie doke. Application layer, and with the potential threats, all sorts can happen at the application layer. So security is code. I think anything as code is, it just means it's automated, integrated in. Encryption, of course, I can never pronounce that word, but it means they don't last very long. That's the one. Ephemeral secrets. And then the final layer, HackerMan, unfortunately, has been, fortunately, should I say, HackerMan is no longer. Agent Goodall has indeed won over. So the last layer, your data layer, which are indeed your crown jewels, as it were, there are a couple of tips for securing those as well. So key takeaways, I've got a little secure IT, secure from the start, encrypt at rest, in transit, in use. You need to develop a culture of security. Users, keep them away, basically. Restrict access. Remediation, so act on the security findings for things like guard duty or whatever you're using. You actually need to do something about it. They won't automatically go and do it unless you set it up. Integration, so security is code. Traceability, make sure you're monitoring and logging. Why? Because your data is your responsibility. Okay. We're going on to do a Kahoot. We're not going to have time for a Kahoot. The idea being, so a few game-based learnings, because on my journey so far, I've been doing quite a lot of online learning, and I'd thoroughly recommend any form of making it more fun. Things like Cloud Quest, many of you might have already done a lot of these are free, certainly up to cloud practitioner level. You have to subscribe to Skill Builder if you want to go higher up. But there's quite a new one called Simulearn, which is more of a kind of professional one. You can have a scripted or an unscripted chat with a bot about what the issue is, and then you design an architecture for it, and then you go and do a lab. So thoroughly recommend that one. Okay, that's it.
So just want to say a huge thank you for our unbelievable 5 talkers. This is the most talkers who have managed to do in an hour. And we just have the wonderful Sarina coming in. So, and the one other thing we want to say is, as I said at the beginning, share these links on Brighton Clouds. Laura, Lucy, I'll definitely be pushing you to do that because these are fab. Any other information that you want to share, and we'll also be posting our next event, which will be Diversity Cloud, which is for everyone, because diversity isn't just the face value and general diversity. So please keep an eye out for that, and that hopefully will be around September. So thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to our wonderful talkers, and watch us on YouTube, I guess. Ooh.